I love the way square bodies look, and the 89 to 91 front grille is probably, man, I'd say it's either my favorite or right behind the 78 to 80 round eyes. I love those guys too. And so I wanted to preserve that look when I built my truck. I didn't want to have a big winch bumper or pre-runner bumper or some big, huge, barn door up front. I wanted something that preserved the lines, and I just wanted to improve upon it slightly, improve on the lighting, improve on the functionality. And so I set about doing that. So I'm going to show you this week how I set up my lighting on the front. I've got a lot of questions about what lighting I use. But I also fabricated up a winch mount, a portable winch mount that will allow me to move the winch from the front to the back. I put a receiver hitch up front that the new the tray will plug into. It's all clean and neat. It doesn't detract from the overall aesthetic of the truck. I can remove it when it's not in use. It plugs into the vehicle's electrical system very easily. And overall, it looks pretty cool. So I'm stoked on how it came out. And today I'm going to show you guys how I built it, how I installed it, how I powered it, and talk a little bit about my lights. When I'm not towing, this hitch can be used for a lot of things. Obviously, I used it to carry my license plate. I put the tire carrier in there. And now I just whipped up this winch mount. It's a portable winch mount. So the idea is it's going to live up front. I'm going to be putting a receiver hitch up front behind the bumper that when we go on road trips, I can connect this guy right up, but it also allows me to move it to the back. So it's going to be managed, or it's going to be powered by these Anderson power pole connectors, which I conveniently have right out the back for jump cables. And I'm just going to have to extend one out to the front, but connect it all together. And let's see if this works. There we go. Obviously, there's no cable on there right now. But I ordered a synthetic line, and when that gets here, I'll be throwing that on. This will slide out quite a bit further. This tube, the receiver tube, the 2-inch square tube right here, is going to be welded onto the bottom. So it's not actually, you see how right now it's sitting in the receiver hitch? It's actually going to be welded onto here and just act like a stinger that goes into the hitch. This is going to be for, carrying everything I want to carry. Maybe I could tow while I have the winch hooked up. I'm just kidding, but everyone seems to think that I'm going to do stupid stuff with this. And I probably am, but not that stupid. I am going to be able to move it though, and that's what I'm pretty fired up on. I know one of the questions I'm going to get is, why did you go with an 8,000 pound winch instead of a 12,000 pound winch? And yes, common rule of law is buy a winch that is capable of either double or 50% more than your vehicle weighs. Now, okay, the reality is I've used a winch many times, and I've never had a winch max out. And if you do have a winch max out, the easiest way to fix that is with mechanical advantage, not adding more electric. This is a snatch block. This is going to turn my 8,000 pound winch into a 16,000 pound winch. You're going to reduce the effective pull 2 to 1, meaning that for every 2 feet moved on the cable drum, I will move 1 foot. This goes out at my anchor point. The cable, well, the winch line, the synthetic rope will go through this and reattach back down here onto the hitch. So every time the winch moves 1 foot, it's only moving 6 inches because it's going to have 2 lines, one on either side of the snatch block. That gives you a mechanical advantage. That means your winch is more effective. Yes, it's going to cut down my effective range of 100 feet down to 50 feet, but worst case scenario, I got to put a dead man anchor somewhere and pull myself a little bit further. Who knows? Honestly, good planning and good route selection can keep you out of most difficult situations. And I I've never found a situation I can't extract myself from. Now, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some doozies out there that I wouldn't be able to extract myself from, but they are the exception rather than the norm. And seeing as I'm going to be moving this thing around and lugging it around, lightweight is better. I've been posting a video pretty much every week for about 5 years, so I have a rather extensive catalog on these square body trucks. Tips and tricks I've picked up along the way, shortcuts, how-tos, all my adventures out in this beautiful country. And if you enjoy that sort of stuff, give me a subscribe. My synthetic line and D-shackle just showed up. So let's install these guys, huh? Oh, look at this pack. I'm so glad that they put protection in on my 30,000 pound D-shackle. Perfect. And the synthetic line, I'm trying to do this with one hand. When synthetic winch line was first available, it was kind of expensive, and I stuck with a cable for a long time just because I didn't feel like throwing down the money. But synthetic winch lines have dropped in price dramatically. The one I picked up off Amazon was like 60 bucks. Now, it might break, but that isn't the end of the world. You see, there's some distinct advantages to a synthetic winch line over a regular winch cable. It's a ton lighter, like 10 to 1. So I immediately pulled the cable off of the drum when I was working on the winch, and I'm glad that I did because it reduced the weight quite a bit. And when you're manhandling cable and running it up and down, like let's say you got to do a handful of winches, like I've had to do with the Blazer before, that winch cable can get heavy and it can tire you out. And if you're dealing with snow, if you're dealing with any water, it sinks. It gets hooked up on stuff, it drags. Whereas the synthetic winch line, it's lightweight, it floats in water, it's soft, it's easy to handle. You can just coil it up around your arm and run out where you need to go to set it up to your anchor. The only things you do need to consider, it is not as abrasion resistant as obviously a cable. So you saw that protective sheath that is on the cable or on the winch line. That's to lay down over drag points. Like if you're dragging around a boulder or the cable's going to be seeing, or the winch line's going to be seeing some abrasion, make sure you've got it protected. So it's one of the reasons I put the winch cover on, was so that I can keep the line protected, because the UV does break them down. But once again, if they snap, you can tie a knot in it and be back on your way. Try doing that with a cable. Much like many of my ideas, I was way overthinking the winch mount. I had these ideas of tucking it up behind the bumper where it was going to be hidden. And then it just dawned on me that I have a awesome mounting system already on the truck. The 2-inch receiver on the back of the truck is massively burly. It can tow my trailer. It should have no problem carrying a winch or a tire carrier. And by putting another receiver hitch up front, I'm doubling the capacity of things I can carry. 2 receiver hitches mean I can carry twice as much stuff if I need to. But more importantly, I have a winch now that can be on the front or the back. It seems so simple looking at it now, but I slept on this for a while. Also, having a receiver hitch up front when I'm not using the winch, it can be used for a variety of things. So, win-win in my book. So here's how I did all the power and everything. So it's pretty simple, but with any winch, you're going to want to go directly to the battery. And fortunately, that's exactly what this jump pole does right here. So I wired up this Anderson power pole connector through some Raychem on here to make it nice and tidy, zip tied everything together. And basically, I just can plug and unplug the winch from the front or the back. This is the Anderson power pole connector, and what makes these so great is they have these really positive connections. So this is going to be the one that's on the vehicle. I use 1 gauge wire for this. This thing is burly. I mean, look at these guys, the size of my thumb. But anyway, this will be mounted somewhere underneath for the front winch connection. And then I've obviously already got the one in the rear. They click together, real nice positive contact. Should not have a problem with electricity flow. When I set about building the winch cradle, I knew that I wanted something that was going to be strong enough to support being a winch cradle, but also light enough that I'd be able to move it. And I settled on having a 1/4-inch plate. Actually, no, I think this is 3/16 plate all the way around as the base and the front triangulation piece. And then adding some 2x2 square tube right there to keep things all locked in place. And then the rest of it, I just cut with a cutoff wheel and bent with my press brake. You'll see underneath, I've got the tubing welded on as a stinger that allows me to move it to various locations. And then I've got the hitch up front to put either my license plate or snatch block or whatever. It's really simple, not a whole lot to it. It's relatively light, so I can move it front to rear, no problems. And it looks pretty clean and neat. I'm getting a lot of requests as to where did I get these turn signals or my running lights? Well, these right here, these are just LMC buckets that I've replaced the bulbs in. This is just an orange LED or orange turn signal bulb. These two right here, those are KC highlights. They're flex eras. They're flex era ones. So these are a combo spot and spread beam. I've got one of each on either side, and they put out a really, really nice light. And then I've got these two up here. Let's pop this cover off. This is the KC Flex Era 4 stadium lights, essentially. They are so bright that you don't really need more than two. I had these on the Blazer for a long time, but with the light rack on top, I didn't need them. And so I moved them over to the burb. And I built this crossbar to support them. And the trick thing is, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this down there, but you see that bolt right down in there? That is holding this guy on. It's bolted through the license plate holes, so no extra holes were drilled in. It's secure, it can come off easy, transfer to another vehicle. And I'm really, really stoked on this, man. They have changed my night game. Well, there it is. That's the lights. Let's get back to the winch. I wanted things to be clean and simple. And so I purchased a piano-style hinge off McMaster-Carr and glued and bolted onto the license plate and back onto the bumper. So it just folds up and tucks out of the way so I can slide the receiver in for the winch. And then when I pull it back out, it falls back down. And we'll have a magnet that holds it in place underneath. Clean, easy. Well, you just watched me struggle trying to put it on this time, but generally it goes on very easily. And then the nice thing for me is when I pull it out, license plate flops down in place. You never even know the hitch is there. The receiver hitch got welded into a crossbar that is mounted directly to the frame and then has these rear supports behind it. So it's definitely tied in very firmly. I can obviously carry a bunch of stuff off this hitch, but it's going to be used for the winch primarily, I can imagine. Maybe the bike rack up front if we're loaded down. But I essentially just took some receiver tube, cut it down, gusseted it, and welded it to the frame. This, once again, is 2x2 square tube with 1/4-inch wall, so it's not going anywhere. My license plate covers up the hole. Yeah, and overall, stoked on how this has come out. I've been on a fabrication kick recently, trying to maximize the utility of my receiver hitch. I just finished up on this worn winch mount that will allow me to plug in either the front or the back for the winch. And I also recently finished up a tire carrier, a fold-down tire carrier that will allow me to carry a 38-inch spare when we head out on road trips. I made a video on the tire carrier. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, so I'm going to list it up here. So click on that and take a look at it. And as always, give me a subscribe, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're working on. We'll see you next week. Merricks Garage.